Hi everyone, my name is Justin, and today I'm going to go over MATLAB subfunctions. Here we have some traditional MATLAB code. We have one master function, and then we have a bunch of subsequent functions. The master function gets run automatically, so lines 2 through 7 get run all the way through to completion whenever we run our code. However, these subsequent functions, fun1 and fun2, do not get run automatically. They will only be run if they are called. So here in line 6, we do call fun1. Therefore, this equation and this function will all run. But fun2 is not called in either the master function nor the subfunction, which was already being run now. Therefore, it has a red squiggly mark and it is not getting run. Subfunctions are not good at communicating with each other through their variable names. The only way for them to transfer information is through inputs and outputs. Inputs are the thing on the inside the parentheses on the right side of the equation. And these are really helpful if we're going to be iterating something and changing variables along the way. In homework 3, you're going to be changing your t2 variable. And it's really important to have that be an input so you can have it iterate and change every single time. Likewise, if you're going to be changing the input, you're also going to be wanting to receive a different output. Therefore, we will want to have some sort of output. And outputs are on the left side of the function name. Like I said, they're really bad at communicating with each other. So here in line 3, we know A is 1, B is 2, C is 10. And those all get run because they're inside the master function. And then they get sent off, they get packaged up in line 6, and then sent off into line 10 into this subfunction. Once they're inside the subfunction, they're fine. The subfunction can deal with itself inside, and they're assigned based by name. Then here, this is an important part, we look for the output once we're done writing the equation. So we're going to look for something called D once we're done running it, which we'll define here in line 12. Then once we have this value of D, we'll send it back to this original line 6 where we originally called it, and then we'll store that information from this equation down here. This will work regardless of the letters actually used. So instead of using A, B, and C, I've now replaced them with X, Y, Z. A is 1, B is 2, C is 10. That is all run because we're in the master function. Then we package it up and then send it down over into the first subfunction. But because they're assigned based on order and not by name, this works. X in the subfunction becomes A from the main function. Y in the subfunction becomes B from the main function. Z from the subfunction becomes C from the main function. And then these can be assigned based on name. And then we're going to look for something called W inside our function. That's going to be in line 12. We're going to send it off. And then the value of W will actually now be stored in the value of D. So it's kind of the reverse of the inputs. This is a more complicated example. I flipped the order of some things, and it can get a little bit confusing. I'd recommend that you pause the video and try this out for yourself. What do you think the value of D will be in line 7? So the value of D is actually going to be 12. And that might not be something that you initially get, and that's okay. We're here to learn. So A is 1, B is 2, and C is 10. Those are all true inside our master function. Then we package it up and send the information over to fun1. But because they're assigned based on order, D inside this subfunction has the value of A from the master function, which is 1. A from the subfunction gets B from the main function, which is 2. B from the subfunction gets assigned the value of C from the main function, which is 10. Then we assign these based on their name inside the subfunction, and we're basically just doing 2 plus 10 times 1. Then here our output is C, so once we're done running, we're going to look for something called C, package that information up, which is going to be 12, and then return that back into line 6. So once we run the code in line 7, we're going to return the value of C from the subfunction, which is just going to be 12. So why do we even need subfunctions? Here on the left is me doing a repeated task by entering a formula and then dragging across in Excel. And this is really good for simple tasks like converting from degrees to radians. But what we do in MATLAB is a little bit more complex, and it's not something that can be solved with just a single equation. Here on the right is Newton's method taken from page 149 of your textbook. In it, we call subfunctions 3 times. Each time our subfunction will do an equation given the x value we put into it. So here we're going to be changing x multiple times inside of our while loop, and each time we're going to be inputting an x and getting out a different df and a different f. If we did this by just writing the equation in here, it would get really messy. And if we start writing more complicated code that has more subfunctions built in, it's going to be really complicated to keep everything organized and make sure everything is properly bug fixed. Hopefully that makes sense, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or any of the other TAs through email or during office hours. Thank you.